Good morning. This is episode number 1, titled Comfortable with Uncomfortable. At first, when I thought of this episode, I wasn't sure this was the one to start with. And then after thinking about it, it actually became the perfect episode to start with. So, comfortable with uncomfortable. In the 179 days it took me to walk across Canada, I was uncomfortable with a lot. There was cold and wet and hot and thirsty and hungry. Tired, lonesome, busy city, busy traffic, narrow roads. There was all sorts of challenges through the 6 months. And a person I had to get to make the day not be unbearably long, I had to get comfortable with all of that. Otherwise, I found myself looking at my watch every 20 minutes, hoping the day had advanced, getting closer to bedtime. So it was quite a journey of variable intensities of being uncomfortable. So at the very beginning, the uncomfortable started with the very idea of walking across Canada. It seemed too grand for me, too big of an idea, too complicated. Once I got comfortable with the idea, then the next step was actually telling somebody. And of course, the first person to tell was my wife, Wendy. And that's a kind of a big step. And then after you tell your family, you have to, at some point, kind of go public. And I remember the first person I told outside of my family, I think, was I went shopping for runners, and the sales lady. I had no intention of telling her really, but the sales lady, she's asking me, about what kind of runners I want, and I wasn't sure. I don't usually wear runners. And she says, well, what are you going to be using them for? I said, well, I'm going to be walking. And she says, how far do you plan on walking? And I kind of hummed and hawed and hesitated, and then I said, I'm going to walk across Canada. And it was kind of funny because she didn't really, well, I don't think she believed me, and I don't blame her. This old guy comes walking into your store, says he wants a pair of runners to walk across Canada. It's like, right, we'll sell him something. But anyhow, that was the first really uncomfortable sort of situation with the plan. And then it was very, and that didn't sort of lessen as the time went on. It was uncomfortable telling people that right up to, when I started walking. It always felt too big for me. But once you're committed, then you had to face that sort of uncomfortable feeling and move forward. So the uncomfortable part was the very beginning, and the physical uncomforts and spiritual uncomforts, they all came as the trip progressed. But initially it was just the uncomfortable of realizing you were going to do something that was unusual. And that took me outside my box, that's for sure. So once I started walking, I mean, the very first day, I took the bus from Kamloops to Victoria. It was that time of year, you never knew what was going to happen on the Coquihalla, so we decided the bus was the better route. So I get on the bus and I've got this really awkward looking hitch, this trailer and this waistband, and I'm pretty unique as far as everybody else that's walking around, and people are looking at you. And a lot of people are uncomfortable with even asking you what you're up to, because you're looking a little different, I guess. And so that was the first day of the sort of the physical uncomfortableness, was people actually didn't want to look at me, or didn't want to see me looking at them, or me see them looking at me, I guess would be better. They wanted to avoid me. And once again, I don't blame them. I looked a little strange with my big trailer and crowding onto the bus to get on the ferry, and so all of that was somewhat uncomfortable. And then I start walking, and so the first night I've got to find a place to sleep. So the uncertainty of where you're sleeping that night happens every day. You're not sure where you're ending up. You have to get your 40 kilometers in, and then you have to find a place to sleep that isn't normally used as a tent site. So all of that is, at the beginning of the trip, was quite uncomfortable. Towards the end of the trip, I became confident in my abilities to find a good place to set up my tent, and so it became wasn't something I was concerned about on a daily basis. So the uncomfortable, and then it doesn't sort of I think once you become comfortable with one aspect of the journey, you start feeling the other aspects, and walking through rainstorms and through snowstorms and wind. There was a level of physical uncomfortableness that you had to master. Otherwise, once again, the day became very long. So, and the heat was, once I got to Eastern Canada, the heat and humidity became another challenge. So the uncomfortable feeling was, I think, present for on the whole 179 days. My feet were very uncomfortable. Often I had to change boots 3 times. Each time you get a new pair of boots, you got to go through a new set of blisters, and then the initial 20 days was just getting used to walking. The bottoms of my feet were quite uncomfortable, to say the least. So all of those, all of those physical discomforts were manageable, but a challenge, and had to be overcome. Otherwise, like I say, your day was just long and suffering, and that's not what I wanted to put. That's not the reason I did it. I wasn't looking to suffer. And so you resolve things, or you change things up. Your mind opens up to solutions to help you get through the day. And if you don't open your mind up, if I stayed if I stayed stubborn in my ways, it would have been a lot longer 6 months, that's for sure. So you change and you learn, and then it's the emotional discomfort is also part of the journey. You're lonely. I miss my family. I miss my home, and so I had to learn ways of being comfortable with that, and so you start to solve those problems too. You start to maybe use your phone more. You don't realize how handy a cell phone is until I didn't realize how handy it was. I mean, you're only a phone call away, literally, and so you just get on the phone or text or email. There's always ways of communicating. So that was a big one, and then also the discomfort of not wanting to sort of put the weight of your journey on other people's shoulders. That was uncomfortable, to think that I had caused hardship for other people, and so that had to be sort of explored and taken care of. So the discomfort was probably the single biggest challenge of the journey, was getting over the discomforts. And to do it required, whether it's spiritually or emotionally, I should describe the spiritual part of it maybe a little. I was aware that my journey was going to be supported by spirit, spirit of the land, the mountains, the trees, the animals. Everything was part of your day because you were right there. You were in the wind and in the rain and walking through the land, and that was your almost your partner through the day, was the land. And I got very close to the land. I became, I would actually, and this might sound a little odd, but I was talking to the land, and it was available, and I took advantage of that, and became very sort of a spiritual journey in the arms of the land, and there was a lot of learning there. So the uncomfortable aspect of all of those different kind of sections, the physical and the emotional and the spiritual, putting myself out there to be uncomfortable, made me either think of solutions or accept answers, accept changes. And I realized that without changing, the uncomfortableness made you change, and change is often good and means growth. So my willingness to be so uncomfortable in some situations and mildly uncomfortable in others enabled me to look at the challenges and to grow with the lessons that came with becoming comfortable. I know that sounds kind of ubiquitous, but without change for me, if there's no change in my my day, no change in my attitude or no change in my solutions, then I wasn't growing. And part of the journey was about growth. So it turns out that the uncomfortable and comfortable became a huge learning theme for my journey. And recognizing that was I think a big step in being able to go across the country and in the success of the journey itself, as a result of learning to be comfortable with uncomfortable. Yeah, so it was quite it was profound once I started thinking about it at the end of the journey. In these last 2 weeks, it was quite sort of revealing some of the basic principles that I sort of challenged myself with. So that's the end of that episode. I'm hoping that was maybe informative. And I definitely have grown from the lesson that I've described in this episode, the lessons, I guess. So, yeah, I'll be posting another episode in the next few days. Give me some feedback. Tell me what you think. And I hope you have a great day. Okay, goodbye.